Good morning. Today is the 16th, I believe. It's Wednesday, yeah. The land which we passed through to search it is an exceeding good land. If the Lord delight in us, then he will bring us into this land. Only rebel not ye against the Lord, neither fear ye the people of the land. The Lord is with us, fear them not. Numbers 14, 7 through 9. Representatives from each of the 12 tribes were sent on a special expedition to determine the challenges they would face and the benefits they would derive from conquering the people of the land. 10 of the 12 spies returned with glowing reports of bounties to be found in the land, but that the people living in the land were many, mighty, and unconquerable. Joshua and Caleb returned with a similar positive report about the land flowing with milk and honey, but they, trusting fully in the power of the Almighty to empower the Israelites, strongly recommended that they move in and take the land. The 10 spies may have been realistic, but they were faithless. Joshua and Caleb were quick to remember how the God of the ancients had performed miracle after miracle to bring them to where they were now. Why could he not assist them in conquering their enemies? In short, Joshua and Caleb refused to take counsel from their fears. Oh, that's an interesting way to phrase it. Take counsel from your fears. All right. Today is Genesis 44, verse 9 through Genesis 45, verse 14. And here we have what happens is we left off with the Lord of Joseph's house telling the brothers, why did you steal from me? And Simeon says, I'm pretty sure it's Simeon. Maybe it's Judah. Who knows? Well, it doesn't say who specifically, but in the movie it's Simeon because he makes a really dumb move. They say, you stole something from me, and he says, well, whoever took it can die, and you can make the rest of us slaves. And it's like, you just bit your foot. Put your foot in your mouth. Because it's like, Joseph is setting this up, and you just said what can happen to you. So cocky. Oh, none of us would have done that, which they didn't, but you don't know the workings of the Lord, Simeon. So anyways, it's found in Benjamin's sack, of course, and Joseph says, no, I'm not going to kill him, and you all are going to be my slaves. You guys can go. He's going to stay and be my slave. And it says that Judah comes up and speaks to him in his ear and tells him the story and saying, if this lad doesn't come back to his father's going to die. Do you have a dad? Do you have brothers? Now, in the movie, Joseph chastises them a little bit. He says, oh, so now you're ready. Because in the movie, they grab the spears and they try to kill Joseph, but they threaten him saying, we got to take him back. They're willing to die to defend Benjamin. And he says, now you're willing to sacrifice your own life for one of your brothers? Why didn't you do so for the other brother? And they're like, what are you talking about? And he's like, I know the story of Joseph. As a matter of fact, he's in my household. And they're like, what? No freaking way. And then, of course, he comes clean. He's like, I'm Joseph. And, of course, they're all crying and they're all bereaved. The boys are ashamed. And he says, I see now that it was meant to be. God was preserving you guys through me by selling me to Egypt. This thing must be. And then he says, go and tell Father and bring him here. And you guys can live in the land of Goshen, and everything's all prepared because there's still 5 more years of the famine. And that's where we leave off in verse 14. Now, what kind of conversation that must have been. All of the sons going back to Jacob and, just kind of like, well, we've got some good news and some bad news. The bad news is that we lied to you. Joseph wasn't eaten by a wild animal. We actually sold him as a slave all those years ago. But the good news is he's alive and he's ready to save our family. Like, what an awkward conversation. Okay. So, love of family. In the dynamic vortex of forces displayed in this story shines forth the glow of love and concern of an aged father for his sons. Jacob, convinced that his beloved Joseph had been torn to pieces in the desert, would now sink into the shadows of death should he learn that Benjamin too was lost from his grasp forever. Thus Judah stands forth to plead before the governor of Egypt that he should be allowed to offer himself as a bondman and servant in the place of his youngest brother, all to protect the well-being of the father. This would prove too much for Joseph to bear. The charade, instigated as a teaching process, would have to be suspended. The truth would have to emerge to bless the lives of the senior brothers, weighed down under the burden of remorse and self-incrimination with newfound hope and joy. I mean, the shame. Like, you've been hiding this deed in the dark for 20 years. And it's been weighing on you every time you see one of your brothers, every time, And then it's like, okay, now it's time to tell your father. Ugh. Okay. Let's see. Forgiveness. The forgiving spirit of Joseph is manifested with the remarkable charity, he being a shadow and a type of the Redeemer himself, sent from God to preserve the life of all of God's children. Like Joseph, any individual touched by the redeeming spirit can never restrain from the exercise of forgiveness. Joseph's vision of the heavenly workings in the affairs of mankind allow him to overlook the petty intrigues of his brethren, though they conspired to exile him in a strange land. Though he started out as a prisoner in Egypt, he was never confined to a negative world of grudge-bearing, recrimination, and blame. Instead, Joseph had the miraculous power to see the good in all that transpired and to become a partner with God in bringing about divine purposes. Joseph sees clearly the hand of God in all that transpires. He is at once the nourisher, the forgiver, the guide, the mentor, the man of grace, the uniter, the family man. In Joseph, we see a prototype of the Savior himself, who provides the bread of life at times of spiritual famine, the water of life at times of spiritual thirst. And Joseph is the purveyor of peace, the harbinger of spiritual harmony. He is the theme of life, the essence of restored vitality. Like the Savior, he is easy to love and easy to follow. Jacob, now Israel, said it best, "It is enough. Joseph, my son, is yet alive. I will go and see him before I die." To act with an eye single to the glory of God, as did Joseph, means we must humbly seek after the best gifts and invest them in the service of our fellow beings. We must learn to kindle the Redeemer's love in our daily lives. We must look for and discern the hand of God at work in our lives and give him heartfelt thanks for the marvelous work and a wonder that the gospel of Jesus Christ brings within the reach of every penitent and faithful saint. When we begin to do this, we begin to catch the vision and the scope of God's covenant plan. All right. The rest of this we'll get into tomorrow. That was Genesis 49:9 through 45:14. I love you all, and I will see you tomorrow.